What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Courtside podcast here on the Basketball Network. I'm Caleb, and I'm joined as always by my good friend and co-host Connor. Connor, how we doing?
Doing good, man. I'm excited. I love Monday nights because we get to do this. Yeah, man. As always, I'm very excited for this episode.
Hey, me too, man. Had a lot of good football action this past week, NFL kickoff and
Mm,
all that, but you know what time
for
it
my
is. It's
fantasy
time to,
team.
yeah. Fantasy team didn't look too great on my end either, but hey, we're ready for basketball and it's time to talk some
Oh
hoops.
yeah,
So, today's episode, we got some good stuff that we'll be going over. So, really, we're going to start breaking down the NBA divisions and going through kind of what those teams are going to be looking like and our expectations for the upcoming NBA season since we're just over a month away. So, it's coming up sooner than we can expect. But first, as always, we're going to go ahead and jump into our transition three. So, for the first big story in the world of basketball from this past week, we got Penny Hardaway and the Memphis Tigers being accused of some major NCAA infractions, things like recruiting and academic violations. And as you may know, Memphis is actually already under probation for violations from 2022. So we just have some huge news coming out in the world of college basketball. Connor, what's your initial thoughts on this one?
yeah. This is very tough for Memphis, especially for Penny Hardaway as he's trying to solidify himself. I feel like he's still trying to prove that he should be here. On the big stage and competing for championships. Um, Definitely a rough look. I think it is important to note that it's just an investigation right now. And if I'm remembering right from the article, it was from anonymous tips, and this was on the heels of 4 staff members being fired as well. So definitely not saying anything's connected, but definitely just some interesting timeline of events that have kind of been happening.
Very true. And something else that's been going on in the Memphis Tiger program is Penny Hardaway actually just got rid of 4 staff members this past week as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're in, the beginning stages of September. College basketball is coming up here in the next couple of months, and you're letting go of 4 staff members, 3 assistant coaches, and 1 special advisor. Don't know if this is linked to any of these NCAA infractions, but just kind of crazy to see all the different news that we're seeing out of this program.
For sure, especially the fact that they're already on probation for a few years, and then this comes out. Definitely a tough look.
Yeah. Last thing I'll mention about the Memphis Tigers, though, is they do have a lot of good transfer portal additions coming in. The likes of Tyrese Hunter, who's played at Iowa State and Texas,
Mm.
Dane Danger, who is a big man on the Illinois team, as well as PJ Haggerty from Tulsa. So they got a lot of new blood into the program. And honestly, this was looking like it might be one of the best seasons for the Memphis Tigers. So really hoping that these rumors or allegations aren't anything that's going to get in the way of them in their upcoming season. But another big story we have in the world of basketball is actually over on the WNBA side. So we've been having this battle between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese for Rookie of the Year this year. And it actually just came out that Angel Reese's rookie season is over. And this is due to suffering a wrist injury on Friday night against the Los Angeles Sparks. Just a brutal way to end an amazing rookie season for Angel Reese.
Yeah, I know people are really divided on her, her style of play. People accuse her of stat padding and whatnot. But I mean, I think you can't deny it. It's very sad, that this happens especially at this point in the season. Her and Caitlin Clark have kind of been neck and neck for Rookie of the Year, and then just the fact that this happens, with just a few games left, um, yeah, it's just really hard, and I also because especially from the WNBA standpoint, probably that Angel Reese Caitlin Clark rivalry, and then you factor in them both competing for Rookie of the Year, they kind of just gets hurt right now because Angel Reese isn't playing.
Exactly, and what a season she was having, already breaking the record for the most rebounds in a single season for the WNBA. And, it was also tough because the Chicago Sky are actually battling to get into the playoffs right now. They're right there, hovering at the eighth spot. And we know the top eight teams in the WNBA make it to the playoffs. So losing her is just really going to hurt that team. But just a quick timeline of what that injury looks like. So it was just a hairline fracture in her wrist. So technically, the doctors mentioned she could play on it, but it could have some long lasting effects if she did. So they decided to hold her out for the rest of the year. But she actually has a surgery scheduled for Tuesday of this week. And then we'll be in a hard cast for roughly a month, and then a soft cast after that, and then obviously rehab. So shouldn't be too long of an injury for Angel Reese, but just not the best timing in terms of where we're at in the WNBA season.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to note here is, like you said, they're right on the edge of making the playoffs. I think they're if they lose out, they're out. But let's say they do make it in, they have to play, one of the best teams in the WNBA in that first round if they stay where they are. So not having her for that is also going to be rough if they do make it in.
Yeah, I just don't see a way the Chicago Sky make it out of the first round if they don't have injuries. So hoping for a speedy recovery, but don't expect to see her back on the court for the rest of the season. But jumping over to the NBA side, there's actually some big news and a little controversy regarding the Philadelphia 76ers and where they're going to be playing their games in some of the upcoming seasons. So there have been some rumors, and it's actually been confirmed by a Philadelphia 76ers spokesperson, that the Philadelphia 76ers are seriously considering their option to move their arena to New Jersey, which is just a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like they're not the 76ers if they're not in Philadelphia. Like they're totally gonna. I feel like you got to rebrand. Um, but yeah, but just some quick little facts on it. So their lease at Wells Fargo expires in 2031, and New Jersey is allegedly offering them 400 million in tax breaks to move the franchise here, which obviously big incentive for them. But I think it is important to note that the governor wants to keep the 76ers in Philly, and he said he would like to do anything possible to keep them here.
Yeah, I don't necessarily anticipate them leaving Philadelphia, but it is good to note that the Philadelphia 76ers want a new home. They've mentioned that they want that both from a player and fan perspective. Wells Fargo just being kind of more of an outdated arena and just wanting some of the new amenities that you see available in other arenas. But another quick thing I'll mention is the 76ers actually moved their team offices and practice facility to Camden, New Jersey back in 2016. So this is where this proposed new arena in New Jersey would be, which is actually only approximately 5 miles from Philadelphia, just across the Delaware River. So they wouldn't be going too far. But then again, they wouldn't be in Philadelphia, which, 76ers and Philadelphia are almost synonymous at this point, and some of the toughest fans we see in all of the NBA. So I definitely think they would have something to say about it if they ended up making this move.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned them moving to Camden, but I think it's pretty normal for, I think, franchises to kind of move out of the big city, and go to a suburb where there's just a little more room for stuff. It gets really crowded in like downtowns. Um, but yeah, definitely something I think to keep an eye on. But I'm kind of expecting them to stay in Philadelphia. Um, I think if Philly maybe matches, whatever New Jersey is offering outside of those tax breaks, it's kind of makes more sense to stay rather than to leave.
Yeah, I agree. I expect them to stay in Philadelphia and, stay the 76ers, but we'll have to make sure and keep up with that story because it's definitely an interesting one. And I know we mentioned that the Wells Fargo, lease expires in 2031, but these are things that have to be thought about now as you'd have to break ground on a new arena. So it's just something that those talks are actually going to ramp up here soon.
Yep. And then the city also has to approve, the expense and the taxes to build the new stadium.
Exactly.
So,
Well, talking about NBA, we're going to go ahead and jump into the rest of our show. So, as we mentioned, these next couple of podcast episodes are actually going to be team previews and breakdowns of each division in the NBA and kind of what we're predicting and seeing and expecting for the upcoming NBA season. For the first one, we're going to be talking about the Atlantic Division. So, we got the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Toronto Raptors. And the way we're going to be doing this is we're going to be breaking them down between maybe 4 tiers and then going through one by one and talking about the team and kind of what they currently have and what we're expecting down the road. So the tiers that we have for the teams in this division are title contenders, playoff locks, play-in or bubble teams, and then tanking for Cooper Flag. So we'll
Taking
go
for
ahead.
flag.
We'll go ahead and jump into the first team, the defending world champions, the Boston Celtics. Connor, I'm assuming I know where you're going to put them, but if you have to put them in one of these tiers, which one are you going for?
Tanking for flag. No, just kidding. They're contenders. You know, they didn't lose anyone. They had a couple smaller additions. You know, especially I'm gonna highlight Baylor Shireman from the draft. But I think one that kind of went under the radar a little bit with Lonnie Walker the fourth from free agency. Um, you know, I mean, obviously I don't think he's going to have a huge role on this team, as you know the Celtics are pretty packed at the guard position. But you know, if there's injuries or you know in blowout games, you know, I think he'll be a great addition for them.
Yeah, I think both of those are two really big additions that you hit on. And, looking at the depth for the Boston Celtics, we know what their starting lineup looks like, right? Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, basically all stars are great players in the NBA right now. But then from a depth perspective, we saw big jumps from the likes of Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and then obviously just the veteran and Al Horford. But I think Lonnie Walker coming in and being that, another backup guard to help out Derek White and Drew Holiday whenever, they need a break is just a great addition to this obviously title contender. And then I like what you mentioned at Baylor Shireman. Had a great career at Creighton, also was at South Dakota State before that, but a great shooter as well and showed a lot of that in the combine. I think this is going to be a very good spot up player and someone that you can expect to see some minutes in this upcoming season.
Yeah, you know, I'm kind of really interested, you know, because kind of when it really gets down to it, teams kind of, you know, will only run like seven, maybe eight guys. I'm really interested to see if Shireman can maybe take one of the places of maybe like Sam Hauser, you know, late down the stretch or in the playoffs. You know, I'm kind of interested to see if he can grow into that role, which I definitely think he has the skill sets too.
Yeah, I think in the early parts of the regular season, we see obviously the teams and the rotations being a lot wider. But then once we're getting down to near the end of the season, and especially in the playoffs, as you mentioned, we get to those 7, 8 player rotations. We know that Al Horford's going to be one of those guys off the bench, as well as Peyton Pritchard. But I agree. I think Baylor Shireman could come in and try and get that eighth spot. Or who knows, we might see the Celtics run out there and have a 10-man lineup and stick with it. But Baylor Shireman definitely going to be a big part and someone that we'll have to continue to look at throughout the season. I think another person that we're going to see have a big jump is in Peyton Pritchard. Already showed a lot last year, but I love this guy. I think he plays with such a passion and has such a crafty game, able to shoot the ball as well as get it into the best players' hands. I think he's just going to continue to up his game. And, as a backup point guard for Drew Holiday and Derek White, just love to see him out there and getting those minutes with the Celtics.
Yeah, you know, I love watching Peyton Pritchard play. You know, I love how they put him in there specifically to take those last second half court shots because they know that he doesn't care, you know, if it goes in and affecting his shooting percentage. I love it. I know he hit a few of those. Um, but I will say, I'm not really expecting him to take a big jump. I'm kind of just expecting him to maybe play at the same level he was. Um, you know, unless like Drew Holiday and Derek White are both going down, you know, and he needs to step into that starting role, I'm kind of just expecting him, you know, to have that same reserve role. but but kind of just be that same guy, you know.
Yeah, no, I can get that, and I definitely think he would take the biggest jump if one of them were to go down to an injury or something like that. But I did want to ask you, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, we think either one of these guys are going to step out and have an MVP like season?
I think it would take some insane efficiency like we saw with Curry, when Kevin Durant joined the Warriors, because Curry didn't average 30 points a game. He averaged 23 when he won one of his MVPs, but his efficiency was off the charts, you know? Um, and so I kind of see that it could be here, where you have some pretty star-studded lineup, but um, I will say I don't think either of these players are known for being the most efficient. So for me, I'm probably going to say we'll probably not see them in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard when you have a lineup like this where it's just stacked with a bunch of all stars and great players in the league. It's just everyone needs their touches, and sometimes you're just not going to get as many as you would on some of the lower end teams that we see in the league or teams where they're just built around one player. I feel like this team is really just such a great complementary group of guys that are all willing to give up those big numbers in order to make it to the end and win the championship. So I definitely see that this team's going to make a big run going into this season.
Yeah, and so you can argue about this with me if you want to, because I know you might take offense to this. But the way they've built the team and kind of kept the core together kind of reminds me of the Warriors did in that mid 2000s. They're overpaying. They're going not overpaying as like each player doesn't deserve what they have, but at the sense they're going over the tax luxury like an insane amount to keep this team together. Um, but they're keeping their all stars together. They're keeping those contenders, and obviously, I think they're probably going to be one of the favorites to win this year. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how my view on them. They'll reload their role players, but they keep that starting five together.
I agree to an extent. Being a Warriors fan, I'm never going to compare anyone to that that
Yeah,
team just because it's one of the greatest ever. And obviously, I think the caliber of players that were on the Golden State Warriors at that point was Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Just an edge above these guys in my opinion.
yeah,
But the way that they played last year, and as you mentioned, they're willing to pay and go into the tax to keep the likes of Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, also Derek White, and then
yeah.
getting a guy like Kristaps Porzingis recently, who he's someone that we might want to talk about as having maybe a little bit of a jump coming off of injury. A couple of seasons ago, showed a lot of flashes this past year, especially in the playoffs. I think he'll be someone that's going to be really fun to watch in this upcoming season.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we saw, he came back from injury in the finals and he freaking balled out. I mean, that first game back, like he couldn't miss.
Yeah.
But, I think the farther he gets removed from that injury, the better he'll be, especially physically. Um, Obviously, I don't think he'll ever be that player he was on the Knicks just because of all his ACL tears, his Achilles tears. It's just hard to rebound from all those injuries. But yeah, no, I definitely think he's a key piece of this team.
Yeah. Well, before we transition off the Boston Celtics, Connor, I want to ask you one final thing. Do the Boston Celtics repeat as NBA champions in the 2024-2025 NBA season?
All right, I'm gonna say they're gonna make the championship, but I'm not gonna say that they're gonna win. I can see a team from West coming in and winning.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to say they 100% make the Eastern Conference Finals. Barring injuries, they're in the Eastern Conference Finals and more than likely in the NBA Finals. But I agree. I think we're going to see some of these Western Conference teams just show their dominance and show that the West is the better conference in the NBA this year. But we do have a lot of exciting teams to talk about in the East. So excited to discuss some of those. So the next team we'll jump into is the New York Knicks. So last year, New York Knicks lost to the Indiana Pacers in the conference semifinals, but bring back a lot of the same core players like Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, and Julius Randle, and made a very big addition this offseason and bringing in Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets. Connor, excited to hear your thoughts on this upcoming season for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I would say the Knicks were probably the best equipped to take down the Celtics in the Eastern Conference last year, but all those injuries, man, especially in the conference semis, just totally prevented them. I'm not saying the Pacers, didn't get hot, weren't a good team, but I think because the Knicks were still competing with them, it was just like, especially after Jalen Brunson went down, in that game, I think you can kind of see that the Knicks were like, yeah, it's probably not our year. Um, I think the biggest thing for them is going to be health. I can see this team being a title contender. That is where I have them at if they stay healthy. But, you know, I feel like we've said this so much in the past few episodes, but health is just everything in the playoffs. You can't stay healthy. Adding all these players, doesn't mean a whole lot. And then also, I will say they did lose Isaiah Hartenstein, who was a huge, huge player for them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a fringe between title contender and playoff lock. I mean, obviously they're going to be in the playoffs this year, but I'm very interested to see how this team works with the loss of Isaiah Hartenstein. I think it's going to be a bigger loss than people expect. Also, with Julius Randle and kind of the emergence, I mean, we knew who Jalen Brunson was, but each and every year he's just emerging as an even better and better player. Just to see the dynamic between the two. But I will say they do have a lot of chemistry with all the Villanova guys coming back together, which will be an exciting storyline to see. And then another big pickup that was really big to me was actually the addition of Cam Payne to the team, just giving Jalen Brunson a little breather from the backup point guard perspective and things. I mean, last year you could kind of see it. Jalen Brunson was the motor that made this team go. And, he has a bunch of great pieces around him, but sometimes he's going to need that breather. So to have a guy like Cam Payne, who's, been in the league for a while, a veteran at this point, and just a capable backup point guard to keep the team afloat while he's on the bench, I think that's going to be a big pickup and a great addition for them this upcoming season.
Yeah, no, I definitely think having that backup point guard is huge for them. Um, but yeah, I will say I'm just based on, who their coach is, I'm kind of still expecting Jalen Brunson to play either 40 minutes or upwards of 40 minutes a game. Um, but yeah, I mean, if he needs a break, Campaign is more than a serviceable guard. I think he's proved that pretty much everywhere he's gone. He can knock down a shot if he needs to. He can be a distributor when he needs to. I definitely think he fits pretty well with this team. I will say, though, I think coming with that loss of Isaiah Hartenstein, are you kind of concerned about the size of this team at all?
I think I'm concerned in the aspect of I'm interested to see who they roll out there. I mean, we have Mitchell Robinson and Jericho Sims as, kind of those starting centers or, the center size players on the team. But they have a lot of depth in other positions. I'm just interested to see who they roll out there. Because if they're starting Mitchell Robinson with Julius Randle, I'm not concerned with the size there, but I think once Mitchell Robinson comes off the court, which he's not going to play any more than, mid 20s, I would say, maybe high 20s in minutes. That's where the size gets a little iffy for me because, I mean, you might throw a guy like Precious Achua up there at the center spot, but he's only like 6'8", 6'9". And so that's when the sizes gets – he can jump, and he's athletic. But, when you got guys in the league like Victor Wembanyama, I mean, sometimes it don't matter how high you can jump. But – they do have a lot of depth in other positions, as I mentioned. OG Anunoby, I'm interested to see how he's used this year with the addition of Mikal Bridges. I don't know if OG is going to start anymore. From what I've seen, the projected starting lineup is Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, Mikal Bridges, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson. But I'm interested to see if, when they play guys like the Celtics, do they throw Julius Randle up at the center to guard Porzingis and then slide in OG Anunoby at the power forward position, or Mikal Bridges? Really just kind of up in the air, but I think they have some fun matchups and kind of fun lineups they're going to be able to toy with this year.
Yeah, dude, I totally forgot about the OG. Um, yeah, I totally forgot that they have him. Definitely, if he is one of your projected backups, I definitely think your wing position is at a pretty solid position. Um, Obviously, I will say though, Josh Hart is no stranger to being played at the power forward. Um, we know he likes his rebounds. Um, so at the very least, if they're not the biggest team, we do know though that these guys, especially those Villanova guys, that they're gonna go out and they're gonna play hard and compete. You know, you'll very rarely see Vincio and Josh Hart, just not play hard out there.
Hey, Jay Wright had them going in Villanova, and they've definitely translated that over to the NBA. So, really excited to see this group put it all together, and hoping to see a little bit of the Villanova Knicks lineup in there at some point, where we get the 4 Villanova players all on the same in at the same time. But last question on the Knicks from me is, what's your expectation for this season? We thinking conference final? I know we mentioned title contender, but are we thinking they're making the conference final, or we have some other teams in the East as well that might be tough to get past?
I'm expecting them to be once again a 2 or 3 seed. I'm definitely expecting them in the conference finals. Um, I don't want to get into too much of their competition because it might ruin some of the remaining episode. Um, but yeah, I think if they don't make the conference finals, I think something went very wrong with it for them this season.
Yeah, I'm right there. I'm thinking conference final, maybe a conference semifinal. And we got another team that we're about to talk about that I might have in the conference finals. So we'll go ahead and jump into them. So the Philadelphia 76ers, mentioned them a little bit earlier in the episode with the maybe tentative movement of their arena. But the Philadelphia 76ers had some big, and I mean big, offseason additions this year. But just to recap what it looked like last season, they actually lost in the first round to the New York Knicks. But I will say they had a lot of injuries, especially Joel Embiid, just kind of an up and down year there. But we saw Tyrese Maxey emerge as a superstar in this league, and they returned him with a healthy Joel Embiid, as well as adding Paul George this offseason in free agency, and have some other big names as well, some good veterans to go about it. But I'm excited to see this trio play. Connor, what's your thoughts?
So here's my thought. I have them as a playoff lock, not as a contender. The biggest reason for that is someone else who is not named Tyrese Maxey needs to show up for the playoffs. Which I'm factoring in players need to stay healthy, which I know that is outside of their control. But, Joel Embiid, former MVP, he just can never seem to stay healthy when it comes, April and May. And I think that's just obviously, like we talked about so much, that is so important. And then, obviously, I think Paul George has come under fire a lot the last 5 seasons for being playoff P. Which, if you look at his statistics, they dip off significantly every time the playoffs seem to roll around. But I think 2 players that I would really like to mention are Reggie Jackson and Eric Gordon. To kind of beef up their guards, which I guess Jared McCain is also from Duke. They drafted him, but not sure how much he'll play with the addition of Reggie Jackson and Eric Gordon, though.
Yeah, I think the Philadelphia 76ers had one of the best off seasons this past year, or this past summer. As I mentioned, Paul George, and real quick on Paul George, I know he's had those things about playoff P, but can I remind you the last time Paul George was in the Eastern Conference, when he was at the Indiana Pacers, going up and taking on those battles with LeBron James and the Miami Heat? I'm excited to see him back in the Eastern Conference, and I think he's getting paired with arguably one of the best big men in the entire league, and Joel Embiid, and then obviously a young star and Tyrese Maxey. I think he's not going to have to be that second option. He can be, and he'll take over games when he needs to, but he can actually be the third option on this team, which if Paul George is your third option on a team like this, watch out, league. I'm expecting big things from the Philadelphia 76ers. So I actually am going to put them in the title contender myself. I'm just super high on this team. Then, as you mentioned, big offseason additions. Reggie Jackson, Eric Gordon from the guard sides. We also retain Kelly Oubre Jr. to back up Paul George. We got Caleb Martin, who played big minutes at the Miami Heat a couple of years ago. Also signed a backup center when Joel Embiid does have to come out, and Andre Drummond. And then I'll mention it, Gershon Yabusele, the France big man from the Olympics that made noise. So he's been signed onto this team. I don't know how much he's going to play. And then I'm also high on the rookie that they drafted in Jared McCain, painted fingernails and all, doing the TikToks. But he's going to bring some fun energy to this team and also some much needed shooting that this team will need. And then they also have Kyle Lowry. I just think this team is so deep. And yeah, a lot of these guys are older, but I think they can make a lot of noise and actually challenge the Celtics in this upcoming season.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just really interested. So, I guess my question now is, who are you projecting to be the two other starters? Obviously, Maxi, Embiid, and George are all going to start. Who would you expect to fit in at the other two spots?
To start off the season, I think they're going to put Kyle Lowry at the point guard still. So I think Maxi is going to play the two guard, but he'll get the ball a lot, and Kyle Lowry will slide off at times. And then obviously Paul George and Joel Embiid. So the other one I think to start, I think Caleb Martin's going to start at the power forward position, but I think that position is really up in the air as to what it's going to look like going down the road. I do think we're going to see lineups where Paul George and Kelly Oubre might be playing side by side when they're playing a smaller lineup, and you really just like have the big five and Joel Embiid, and then kind of the four guards or two guards and two wings there. But I think to start the season, those two are going to be Kyle Lowry and Caleb Martin.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember if you said this or not, but important note, they did lose Tobias Harris. Um, I know when we were talking earlier, you said they essentially traded Paul George for Tobias Harris, hence why there's a gap at the starting power forward spot. Um, I will say, though, what do you think about Reggie Jackson being the starter over Kyle Lowry?
I actually wouldn't mind that. I think Reggie Jackson might fit a little better, just from the sense of he's going to be able to get the ball in the right people's hands, and Kyle Lowry can do that too. But Kyle Lowry's a little old, a little washed in my opinion, but he still does some good things. Um, I just like Tyrese Maxey having the ball in his hand. So whoever we can slide in there to where Tyrese Maxey it maximizes the amount of time with the ball in their hand. I think that would be great. I don't think they're gonna do this, but I think a lineup I'm really gonna like is when they roll out Tyrese Maxey and have Eric Gordon at the shooting guard, and then Paul George out there with him, because Eric Gordon doesn't need the ball in his hand. He could be that spot up shooter, and so Tyrese Maxey or Paul George can go to work, and you can have Eric Gordon sitting in the corner. I think that's going to be a really good lineup, and they might roll that out more times than not.
All right, I'm glad you brought him up, Eric Gordon. Um, okay, I'm a lifetime Rockets fan. Eric Gordon had phenomenal years. I love him. Gave us some really good basketball. I think if the 76ers, what they need to do with Eric Gordon is, because it's incredible, because every team he goes to, right, Eric Gordon is your streaky shooter. One game he's going to drop 30, the next game he'll drop 5, right? And he'll shoot over 10 from 3. I think if the 76ers, if they see in that first quarter, oh, he's 0 for 4 on threes, maybe instead of running Tyrese and Eric Gordon, maybe they run Tyrese and McCain, and get the rookie some minutes who, can be a knockdown shooter. Um, but I just feel like recently, Eric Gordon, obviously earlier in his career, was a ball handler. He liked to run off screens, pull up and shoot. I think if he can be that spot up shooter, and realize, that's what is going to benefit them the most, I think he'll be a great fit. I just think it's a mindset of this is my role on this team.
Yeah, I think Eric Gordon knows that, especially, he's been in the league for so long and the past couple of teams that he's been on, with the Rockets and the Clippers and then Phoenix, he hasn't been the guy that has had the ball in his hand all the time, especially last year with Phoenix, You got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, like you're going to be the guy that's the spot up shooter. So, I think he does understand that, and I'm just hoping he has a great year shooting because he's going to get a lot of open threes at that team.
Yeah, as long as he's not chunking up, 10 shots a game, I think if he picks and chooses his shots, you know, I think he'll be a great addition. Um, but yeah, Andre Drummond, though, I will say, I think that's a pretty, important signing for them. Um, Especially, let's say Embiid does go down again. I think Andre Drummond is a great player to have on your roster. He can play defense, he can rebound. Um, I know he's a little bit older than he was, and I think he's kind of fallen out of the league because the league got so efficiency heavy and analytics heavy, and they were like, oh, his game's not good, but I feel like we forget that Andre Drummond used to be a terror, dropping 20 and 20. I'm not going to say every game, but he would drop it a few times a season, you know?
Yeah, he's a double double machine, and I think he's kind of the perfect big to back up Joel Embiid, just to get in there. You don't have to score a lot; just get some boards and get it back to your great players out on the wing and on the perimeter. So I think he's going to slide in there nicely and give him some good minutes. And last thing I'll mention on the 76ers is I really hope they use the early part of the season to get their rookie Jared McCain some minutes. I think he can come up big. I mean, he was a lights out shooter at Duke. I mean, basically the most reliable shooter they had on that team as a freshman. So I can see that translating into the league. And then another guy I want to mention is Ricky Council, the fourth. Shout out Arkansas on that one, but just super scary athletic. And he could provide some good run. And not sure if he's going to get many minutes later in the season, but would be really cool to see him get some run early on because I think he could provide a lot of a good minutes there and had some great stats and games in the summer league.
Yeah, I definitely think McCain and Ricky Council both have some great guys to learn under too. I mean, you got Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry, and Eric Gordon, all seasoned veterans who have been here, 10 plus years. I think they have some great guys that can help develop them throughout the season.
For sure. So you said playoff lock. So are you thinking second round exit type thing for the Philadelphia 76ers?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm expecting a conference semis exit for the 76ers still.
I'm calling it right now. 76ers stay healthy. They're making it to the conference finals and they're going to
Mm.
rival the Boston Celtics. I like this team. I want Paul George to get back to who he was back when he was in Indiana, just an absolute killer in the playoffs,
Too
rivaling
many injuries.
LeBron in Miami. But that's the name of the game is injuries, so we'll see if that stays put. Next team we want to talk about is the Brooklyn Nets and kind of what they're looking like in this upcoming season. So, Brooklyn Nets have had a tough go the past couple of seasons. Last year, finishing 11th in the East, 4 games out of the play in. And, they have just lost star player after star player. And this offseason was no different, trading over Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks. So, their core right now is looking like Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson, Ben Simmons if he plays, Dennis Schroeder, and Cam Thomas. So have some exciting young guys, but for me personally, I'm putting these guys as tanking for flag. I don't think they're going to be doing much, and I don't think they're going to be making the playoffs, so might as well try and go out there and get a guy like Cooper Flag.
Yeah, obviously, Mikal Bridges is now on the Knicks, losing their best player. I know teams have kind of been asking about Cam Johnson. I think the Nets right now have a pretty steep price for him, which obviously he's a really good scorer and shooter. Um, Obviously, Ben Simmons is just always a wild card. I did see he's been cleared for 5v5. Um, I mean, and we know Dennis Schroeder is, he's Dennis Schroeder. He'll put up numbers. He'll be a startup engine for your team, and we know Cam Thomas can score. Um, yeah, I kind of am expecting the Nets to tear down their roster. Obviously, you got Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton. I think are there two big pieces that teams could be interested in right now. If you want to throw in, maybe they try to trade Ben Simmons, but it's probably going to be hard to find a suitor for him. But yeah, I'm expecting them to trade away some of their players and just kind of strip their roster. And I also got them in the tanking for flag.
Hey, I'm just gonna call this right now. Cam Johnson's gone by the trade deadline.
Oh,
I think this guy, he probably doesn't want to be there because we've seen him play. He can play at a high level and wants to go and get, into a contender of some sort, at least some team that's going to play in the playoffs. And obviously a great player, so he needs to be there. But these other guys are just, I feel bad for this team because I feel like, they just get a lot of these players and then things happen and they leave the Nets and they're in shambles and then they build it up again and they're a Kevin Durant foot from advancing in the playoffs and different things like that. So I'm right there with you. They're just this is another rebuild year and they're gonna continue to do so, and hopefully in these years they can, while they're rebuilding, develop the guys and the likes of Cam Thomas, who's just an absolute beast on the offensive side of things. But I'm not expecting much in terms of noise from the Brooklyn Nets this year.
yeah. I think, like I said, the only noise I'm expecting is some trades coming up. I am, some player, I know we mentioned him, but would not necessarily on the trade block, is maybe Dennis Schroeder. Maybe there's like a borderline contender team, or there's a team that's making, a push for the playoffs that maybe they view him as, hey, we need a guard who can run, our offense. I'm not sure what the Lakers have going. They really didn't do a whole lot this off season, and I know they've talked about maybe making a change up point guard. Maybe they bring in Dennis Schroeder for that change of pace. And I think there's a few other teams that could probably maybe use someone like Dennis Schroeder on their team.
Yeah. They did make a few moves, as we mentioned, in the offseason. So got rid of Mikal Bridges and brought in the likes of Bojan Bogdanovic, who's on an expiring contract. So we should only see him in a Nets uniform 1 year. And then Shake Milton. And then one player that I thought was interesting was Zaire Williams from the Memphis Grizzlies. He's actually shown some flashes in past couple of seasons. Very young guy, has a high motor, and is really lanky. So I think we could see some good showing from Zaire Williams this season. So that could be a bright spot for the Brooklyn Nets. He's a restricted free agent that's coming up at the end of this season, but they could retain him. So did make some moves, but a lot of these moves are just rebuild moves where they're tearing it down, and hopefully we can see them getting Cooper Flag by the end of it.
Maybe, but I guess so. My expectation for them is, do you think they reach 20 wins?
I'll give them low to mid 20s. I think they reach 20 wins, but not much more. Unless they're legit trying to tank for Flag, then they're gonna be mid teens.
Yeah, I'm expecting a max of like 23 wins out of them.
Yep, I agree. I think the over under would probably be like a 22 and a half. All right, last team in the Atlantic Division, we got the Toronto Raptors. Last year had a really underwhelming year, finished 12th in the East. Did make a big move where they acquired RJ Barrett in exchange for OG Anunoby last year. Also have the likes of Grady Dick, Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickly, and Jakob Pertl. Connor, initial thoughts on the Raptors for this year?
Yeah, so I have them as a play-in slash bubble team. I'm So to clarify, what I mean by bubble team is a team that is contending for a play-in spot, but not a lock for the play-in spot. So for the Raptors, I'm considering them a lock for a play-in spot. They could reach, like a in a playoff lock if they play really well. But I'm kind of expecting them in the play-in tournament this year. Last season they finished 12th, but obviously they did not have a full season with their roster, which honestly they have a pretty young core here. I think out of the players that we've mentioned, Jakob Pertl is the oldest, and honestly, I wouldn't even consider him that old either. Um, but yeah, I think a big thing for them is just trying to find a way to mesh together.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I have them there at the the play-in slash bubble tier as well, and they got some exciting players as you mentioned. Emmanuel quickly, Scotty Barnes, some really good young players that we see there, and then they also added Jacoby Walters and Jamal Shed from the draft this year. Jacoby Walters coming off a great season there at Baylor, and then traded for Davion Mitchell as well. So really bolstering that young core that they have there in Toronto. I agree. I think they could play well and make it into the playoffs, but I definitely think they're going to be between that 7 and 10 seed in the East.
Yeah, I will say I'm kind of expecting offensively this team to be pretty good. I mean, Emmanuel Quickly, Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick, and R.J. Barrett are all pretty offensive-minded players. Um, I think Scotty Barnes probably the most balanced out of all of them. Um, and then I mean, Jakob Pertl is your rebounding. He can play some defense. He can dunk it. But you're not really going to see him stretch the floor a whole lot. Um, I think this team might struggle a little bit on defense, though.
I agree, but I do think this team is actually a little deeper than most people give them credit for, and we might see that this year. So, you got Emmanuel Quickly, Davion Mitchell, point guard and backup point guard there, but they also have Bruce Brown Jr., which we saw him have an amazing season with the Denver Nuggets a couple of years ago. Grady Dick, Ochai Abaji, who played well at Kansas a few years ago and saw some flashes with the Utah Jazz, as well as Scotty Barnes and R.J. Barrett, who we mentioned, and then Jakob Pertl, and then had some veteran present with Kelly Olynyk there at the center, and then the fantasy beast when he gets the start, Chris Boucher.
Mm,
So
sir.
they are pretty deep in terms of just young core to develop and different things like that. So I don't think there's a lot of loss whenever you take those starters out, which could be a great thing for them. And a lot of players are going to see a lot of minutes on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key for them is the kind of season Scotty Barnes has. You know, I feel like we really didn't see him take a step from his from his rookie to sophomore year. Um, which I know they were really expecting him to and wanting him to. So I think if he can finally take that step, just really control the offense, um, like he has the potential to do, and contribute on defense. Um, because I think he's someone who can guard the perimeter, but can also help down low. If they're in a pinch. Um, yeah, I think a lot of their season might depend on Scotty Barnes.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't necessarily like about this Toronto Raptors team construction is how they built around Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is a guy that I feel like really thrives when he has shooters around him, and he's going to be able to give himself space to get to the cup, and then when defenders collapse he can kick it out to those shooters. And that's one thing that I'm not really seeing on this team. I think that's what they really wanted to get out of Grady Dick, and we may see a step up there from him. But others on this team are just young guys that kind of do the same thing. Things people like R.J. Barrett. So we've seen flashes where R.J. Barrett and Scotty Barnes can coexist, but I'm really hoping to see some steps in the right direction in terms of the shooting from the other guys in that core.
Yeah, for sure. So where do you have them? You said or you said play and lock. Um, so kind of what's your kind of win or sorry, how much games do you think they're going to win this year?
Whew, how many games do I think they're going to win this year? I think to be in the play-in, they're going to have to be around mid to high 30s in the East, because I do think we see teams getting in the play-in that do have a losing record, though, in the East. So I would say if they hit like 38, they're in the play-in. And I could see them being right around there this season. My projection is they just barely get in at the 10th seed.
Okay. Yeah, my goal, or to me, I think they have to at least win 38 just to get in. Obviously, I think the East, just from the top down, is just not as deep as the West. Because, the West, it's like if you're not above 500, it's going to be really hard for you to get in. But I think, like you said, in the East, they can be under 500. But I think they have to win a minimum of 38 games. I think if they don't hit that, they're not making the play-in.
I agree. And you know what? I think they're gonna hit it. So let's go Toronto Raptors. Let's see you make it into the play-in and hopefully make some noise there. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for the Atlantic Division. But before we go today, Connor and I actually talked earlier, and we want to do a little bit of some trivia. So we do love the NBA, but we also love college basketball. So we're going to be doing what college did he go to? So each one of us have prepared a list of players from each team in these divisions, and we'll go back and forth asking what college did he go to. So Connor, I'll go ahead and ask you first. I got 5 listed, and then if you want to come back at me, we can do it like that.
All right.
Or do you want to just go back and forth?
Let's just go back and forth.
Okay, we'll go back and forth. All right, I'll ask you first. All right, what college did he go to? Al Horford.
Oh, shoot. Al Horford. Oh, man.
You can ask for a hint if you need it.
I think. Is it out west?
It is not out west.
Dang.
It is the opposite of out west.
Man, he's not UNC, right?
He is not UNC, but I will say you're warm in the fact that his team actually won back-to-back national championships.
Is he Florida?
That is correct. Al Horford,
Wow.
the Florida Gator.
Dang. Man, I had no idea he went to Florida. All right. Xavier Tillman. Where do you think he went?
Xavier Tillman. Okay, Xavier Tillman. I
A little
believe
more
he.
recent than Al Horford.
Yeah, I hit you with a hard one there first. Xavier Tillman. I think he's Big Ten. Initial guess is Michigan State.
That's right. Yeah. Michigan
Let's
State.
go. Tom Izzo. Shout out Xavier Tillman. Go Sparty. All right. Coming at you next. What college did he go to? Nicholas Claxton.
Oh, wait, hold on. I used to know this because it was a smaller school, right?
Not known for basketball, but I wouldn't say smaller school.
Oh, my gosh.
I got hints as well, so let me know if you need them.
All right. All right. Hit me with a hint.
Okay. He went to the same school as a star, but also known as a rising star in the NBA. And
Wait. Is it Georgia?
That's correct.
Yes. Oh, my word.
Nick Claxton, Georgia Bulldog.
I was like, I think it's the SEC, but what? Okay. Did him and Ant play together ever?
I'm not sure if they overlapped. I think they were close, but I don't think they overlapped. But don't quote me on that one.
All right. Let's see if you can get this one. I'm really curious if you will or not. Daquan Jeffries.
Daquan Jeffries. Quan Jeffries. Okay, I'm not 100%, but I'm gonna go with my gut on this one. Okay, I'm
Okay.
gonna go with my gut. I hope I'm right. But was he a Tulsa Golden Hurricane?
Yes, sir.
Let's
Figured
go.
Oklahoma
Shout out
native.
T.
Yes, sir.
Shout out T Town, baby.
Yeah. I was like, I feel like we both have a connection to Oklahoma. Got to sneak in a Oklahoma guy in.
Wait, I love that, but to be honest, I don't even know what team he plays for now.
Oh, he's on the Knicks.
Okay. Oh man. All right. Next one. Jakob Pertl.
Jakob Pertl. Oh my gosh. Trying to think. All right. I'm pretty sure he was Pac-12, right?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay. Which, I mean, I know all the Pac-12 schools are gone now in different
Yeah.
conferences. Okay, was it Utah?
Nice. That is correct. The
So,
Utah
I was like,
Ute.
I remember watching him when I was like a young teenager, watching him play. Okay.
Late at night. You'd
Yes,
watch
sir.
it. The game wouldn't start till like 10 p.m.
Oh my
Central
gosh, dude.
Time.
My mom could not get me to go to bed because I'd be up so late watching the Pac-12 basketball.
If you had the Pac-12 network.
All
Couldn't
right.
find that anywhere.
All right. I'm not gonna lie. I was surprised this player was still in the league. Garrett
Oh
Temple.
gosh. Oh, Garrett Temple.
You hit me with an old guy, so I kind of hit you with an old one as well.
Garrett Temple. Oh my gosh.
In
Garrett
case
Temple.
you are wondering, he's 38 years old. Been in the league 14 years.
Okay.
If you need a hint,
I think
can
he
give you a hint.
I think he played SEC. I think he played SEC, but that's about as far as my.
He did indeed.
Okay, he played SEC.
Okay, this
I'm
team
Yep.
has a few like really good players to come from here, but they're never good.
Okay, so like great players out of college come to the NBA and kind of don't pan out.
No. Sorry. Like whenever these star players are on LSU, they're not really good. Does that make sense? So
Oh,
like
okay.
even though they have this star player, they're not winning games. Is what I meant.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Only person that I can think of that fits that criteria that played in the SEC is Ben Simmons, so I'm gonna go LSU.
Yep, he went to Louisiana State University.
Oh, let's go.
Dude,
That's
okay,
literally
isn't that so true though? Like I feel like
yeah,
LSU always has these good players, but they're just never good.
yeah. That's 100% true. I mean, the only like caveat to that is back in the day Shaquille O'Neal, but besides that,
Yeah,
like recent, yeah, 100% like Cam
I was like,
Thomas.
or I think when like Nas Reed, wait, was Nas Reed
N-
from LSU? I think
Yeah,
they made the
Nas.
tournament that year, but
Yeah, they were always overhyped in recent years.
yes, yes. I
Okay,
remember when they had Ben Simmons, they weren't that good.
that was a good one. I liked that one. All right, hitting you with it. Kelly Oubre Jr. What college did he go to?
Seriously, bro, he went to Kansas.
Okay, I was just
No,
making sure we knew that one. I was just making
yes,
sure. Big
sir.
12, I thought we had to get it.
Yeah. All right. Is this the last one?
I got two more. Or one more. I
One
just
more.
hit you with my
All right.
fourth.
All right. Okay. I feel like this one might confuse you, but KJ Martin.
KJ Martin. Where did you play? I think I'm gonna need a hint on this one. I keep thinking Oregon State. I know it's not Oregon State because I think Gary Payton. I'm thinking Gary Payton the second.
Yes. Yeah, that's where he went. KJ Martin. Let's see. I'm trying to think of a hint that's not just going to give it away. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of duped you with this one. It's kind of a trick answer. Oh, yeah, okay, that can be my hand. It's kind of a trick question.
Okay.
Um,
So he didn't go to college?
Correct. He did not go to college.
Oh, okay.
Instead of going to college, he played another year at IMG, and
Interesting. Okay.
he went straight from IMG to getting drafted by the Rockets.
Gotcha. Okay, so
Yeah.
for anyone listening that doesn't know, IMG is a high school, but it's technically a prep school. So they don't necessarily adhere to the same rules as normal like public high schools. So there are people that will go and stay an extra year at prep schools and play again rather than going to college. We don't see it too often, but
Yeah, because
I,
he actually played at Monteverde
oh, okay,
before,
yeah, nice.
and then
Montbird and then
his
IMG.
yeah, and so that's where his senior year he played at Monteverde, but then he played another year at IMG.
Nice. Okay, cool. All right, last one. What college did he go to? I feel like this one's going to be a giveaway. I don't think this one's going to be too hard, but we're just going to go with it. OG Ananobi.
OG Ananobi. I'm not sure I know this one. Dude,
Historic program.
I dude, I know he. Hmm. Dude, I'm trying.
I can give a hint too.
No, no, it's not the Big Ten, is it?
It is the Big Ten.
It is the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. Okay, I want to say Indiana.
That is correct. OG Ananobi
Oh
was a Hoosier. My
oh
next
my
hint
gosh,
was
I
going
don't
to
know
be
where I had that
my next hint
stored,
was going to be
but
historic program, but not known for winning as of late.
maybe that'll change this year. They got a big transfer class.
Yeah, we'll see.
Um.
Predicted to
All
win
right.
Big Ten and some for some people.
All right. Let's see. Dorian Finney-Smith.
Oh my gosh, you hit me with a little DFS. Little DFS. Where did you go, DFS? Where
If it makes
did
you feel better, I had no idea he went here before I looked at his profile.
Okay, DFS. Dorian Finney-Smith. He played East. He's in the East. Oh my gosh. Dorian Finney-Smith. I'm trying to like picture him in a jersey. And I think, you know what? I think this is a repeat of a school we said earlier. I think he went to Florida.
He did indeed go to Florida.
Let's go. Chomp, chomp. Go Gators.
It's okay. My backup was just in case you said Dorian Finney-Smith from the Nets was Shake Milton. Do you know
Oh,
where Shake
hey.
Milton went?
SMU, Southern Methodist, baby.
Yeah.
Shout out Owasso, Oklahoma, high school product.
Is that where that is?
No, sorry. He played at high school. He played high school ball in Owasso, Oklahoma, then went down to play for, I think it was Larry Brown at SMU. I watched him in high school. That dude was next level. Well, I think that's all we have for today's episode. Wanted to say thank you to everyone who is watching and listening this one. If you're still listening, please don't forget to make sure and subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that like button. If you're listening on any podcast platform, make sure to give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed what you listened to today. And as always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.